Hello, BookTube. Well, May is for magazine, so I decided to start with the Century magazine on May of 1888. And this is just titled Milton. It's by Matthew Arnold. And the footnote says that it was an address delivered in St. Margaret's Church, Westminster, on the 13th of February, 1888, at the unveiling of a memorial window presented by Mr. George M. Childs of Philadelphia. And it's interesting because Matthew Arnold passed away just 2 months later, in April of 1888. So let's continue. The most eloquent voice of our century uttered shortly before leaving the world a warning cry against the Anglo-Saxon contagion, the tendencies and aims of the view of life, and the social economy of the ever multiplying and spreading Anglo-Saxon race would be found contingent. This prophet feared by all the pros, all the vulgarity amongst mankind, and would invade and overpower all nations. The true idea would be lost. A general sterility of mind and heart was set in. The prophet had in view, no doubt, in the morning, thus giving us an colony, but the United States still more. There the Anglo-Saxon race is already most numerous. There it increases fastest. Their material interests are most absorbing and pursued with most energy. There the saving idea of a high, rare elegance seems perhaps to suffer most danger of being obscure and lost. Whether one may think of the general danger to the world from the Anglo-Saxon contingent, it appears to me difficult to deny that the growing greatness and influence of the United States does bring with it some danger to the idea of a high and rare elegance. The average man is too much a religion there. His performance is unduly magnified. His shortcomings are not duly seen and admitted. A lady in the state of Ohio sent to me only the other day a volume of American authors. The praise given throughout was of such high pitch that in thinking her I could not forbear saying that for only one or two of the authors named was such a strain of praise admissible, and that we lost all real standard of eloquence by praising so uniformly and immoderately. She answered me with a charming good temper that very likely I was quite right, but it was pleasant to her to think that excellence was common and abundant. But excellence is not common and abundant. On the contrary, as the Greek poet long ago said, excellence dwells among rocks hardly accessible, and a man must almost wear his heart out before he can reach her. Whoever talks of excellence as common and abundant is on the way to lose all right standard of excellence. And when the right standard of excellence is lost, it is not likely that much which is excellent will be produced. To habitate ourselves, therefore, to approve, as the Bible says, things that are really excellent is of the highest importance. And some apprehension may justly be caused by a tendency of the Americans to take, or at any rate attempt to take, profess to take, the average man and his performances too seriously, to overrate and overpraise what is not really superior. But we have met here today to witness the unveiling of a gift in Milton's honor, and a gift bestowed by an American, Mr. Childs of Philadelphia, whose cordial hospitality so many Englishmen, I myself among the number, have experienced in America. It was only last autumn that Stratford-upon-Avon celebrated the recipient of a gift from the same generous donor in the honor of Shakespeare and Milton. He who wishes to keep his standard of excellence high cannot choose two better objects of regard and honor. And it is an American who has chosen them, and whose beautiful gift In honor of one of them, Milton, with Mr. Whittier's simple and true lines inscribed upon it, is unveiled today. Perhaps this gift in honor of Milton, of which I am asked to speak, is even more than the gift in honor of Shakespeare, one to suggest edifying reflections to us. Like Mr. Whittier, I treat the gift of Mr. Childs as a gift in honor of Milton. Although the widow given is in memory of the second wife, Catherine Woodcock, the latest spouse saint of the famous sonnet who died in childbed at the end of the first year of her marriage with Milton, and who lies buried here with her infant. Milton is buried in Cripplegate, but he lived for a good while in the parish of St. Margaret's, Westminster, and here he composed part of Paradise Lost and the whole of Paradise Regained and Samson's Agnostics. When death deprived him of the Catherine whom the new window commemorates, Milton had still some 18 years to live. And Cromwell, his chief of men, was yet ruling England. But the Restoration with his sons of Belial was not far off. And in the meantime, Milton's heavy affliction had laid fast hold upon him. His eyesight had failed totally, and he was blind. And what remained to him of life he had consolated of producing Paradise Lost and the Samson's Agonists, and such a consolation we may indeed count as no slight one. But the daily life of happiness is common things in domestic affections, in life of which to Milton as Dante too small a share was given. He seems to have known most, not only in his one married year with the wife who is here buried. Her form vested all in white, as in the sonnet he relates that after her death she appeared to him, her face veiled, but with love, sweetness, and goodness shining in her person. This fair and gentle daughter of the rigid sectariist of Hackney.
So, Alan, is the library open?
Oh, I'm doing a video at the moment.
Oh, you are?
I don't know if its library's not open or not. In part of Milton, indeed, and in calling up her memory, we call upon his. And in calling up Milton's memory, we call up, let me say, a memory upon which is prospect of Anglo-Saxon contingent and of its daughter supposed and real. It may be well to lay stress even more than upon Shakespeare's. If to our English race an adequate sense of perfection of work and real danger, if the disciplines of respect for a high and flawless excellence is peculiarly needed by us, Milton is all our gifted man the best lesson, the most salutary influence, and the sheer and flawless perfection of his rhythm and diction he is as admirable as Virgil or Dante. And in this respect he is unique among us. No one else in English literature and art possesses the like distinction. Thomson, Cowper, Wordsworth, all of them good poets who have studied Milton, followed Milton, adopted his form, failed in their diction and rhythm, if we try them by the high standard of excellence maintained by Milton consistently. From style really high and pure, Milton never departs. Their departures from it are frequent. Shakespeare is divinely strong, rich, and attractive, but sureness of perfect style Shakespeare himself did not possess. I've heard a politician express wonder at the treasures of political wisdom and a certain celebrated theme of Dolores and Cressida. For my part, I am at least equally moved to wonder at the fantastic and false dictation which Shakespeare has in that scene clothed them. Milton, from one end of Paradise Lost to the other, is in his dictation rhythm consistently a great artist in the great style. Whatever may be said as to the subject of his poem, as to the conditions on which he received his subject and treated it, that praise, of any rate, is assured to him. For the rest, justice is not at present done, in my opinion, to Milton's management of the inevitable matter of the Puritan epic, a matter of full of difficulties for a poet. Justice is not done to the architectonics, as Goethe would have called them. A paradise lost in this too, the power of Milton's art is remarkable. But this may be a proposition which requires discussion and development for establishing it, and they are impossible on an occasion like the present. That Milton, of all our English race, is by his dictation and rhythm the one artist of the highest rank and the great style whom we have. This I take as requiring no discussion. This I take as certain. The mighty power of poetry and art is generally admitted. But whether so, this power, as at best, chiefly resides, very many of us fail to see. It resides chiefly in the refining evaluation brought in us by the high and rare excellence of the great style. We may feel the effect without being able to give ourselves clear account of its cause, but the thing is also so. Now no race needs the influences, mention the influences of refining evaluation more than ours, and in poetry and art our grand source for them is Milton. To what does he owe this supreme distinction? To nature first and foremost, to that bent of nature which inequality, which is the worshippers of an average man, is so unacceptable to a gift of divine favor. The old one grows. The more one prizes natural gifts, because by no possibility can they be procured and stuck on. Nature formed Milton to be a great poet, but what other poet has shown so sincere a sense of grandeur for vocation, and a moral effort so consistent and sublime to make it and keep himself worthy of it? The Milton of religious, political controversy, and perhaps a domestic life, also is not seldom disfigured by want of amenity, by acridity. The Milton of poetry, on the other hand, is one of those great men who are modest. To quote a fine remark of Leopardi, that gifted and stricken young Italian who, in the sense of for poetic style, is worthy to be named with Dante and Milton. Who are the modest, because they cannot compare themselves, not with the other man, but with the idea of the perfect which they have before their mind. The Milton of poetry is a man, in his own magnificent phrase, of devout prayer to that eternal spirit that can enrich with all utterance and knowledge, and sends out his seraphim with the hollow fire of his altar to touch and purify the lips of whom he pleases. And finally, the Milton of poetry, in his own words again, the man of industrious and select reading. Continually he lives in companionship with a high and rare excellence, with the great Hebrew poets and prophets, with the great poets of Greece and Rome. The Hebrew compositions were not in verse, and cannot be inadequately represented by that grand measured prose of our English Bible. The verse of the poets of Greek and Roman, no translation can adequately reproduce. Prose cannot have the power of verse. Verse translation may give whatever charm is in the soul and talent of the translator, but never the specific charm or verse in the poet translated. In our race there are thousands of readers. Presently there will be millions, and know not a word of the Greek or Latin, and will never learn those languages. If this host of readers are ever to gain any sense of the power and charm of the greatest poets of antiquity, their way to gain it is not through translations of the ancients, but through the original poetry of Milton, who has the like power and charm because he has that like great style. Though Milton may gain it, for in conclusion, Milton is English. This master in the great style of the ancients is English. Virgil, whom Milton loved and honored, has at the end of the Aeneid a noble passage where Juno, seeing the defeat of Turnus and the Italians imminent, the victory of the Trojan fate is assured, entreats Jupiter that Italy may nevertheless survive and be herself still, may retain her own mind, manners, and language, and not adopt those of the conqueror. Jupiter grants prayers. Jupiter grants the prayers. He promises perpetuity in the future to Italy. Italy reinforced by whatever virtue the Trojan race has, but Italy, not Troy. This we may take as a sort of parable suiting ourselves. All the Anglo-Saxon contingent, all the flood of Anglo-Saxon communists, beats vainly against the great style, but cannot shake it, and has to accept its triumph. But it triumphs in Milton, in one of our race, common faith and morals. Milton has made the great style no longer an exotic here. He has made it intimate among us, a leaven and a power. Nevertheless, he and his hearers on both sides of the Atlantic are English and will remain English. The English race overspreads the world, and at the same time, the idea of excellence, the most high and most rare, abides a possession with it forever. So that's Matthew Arnold, and it was address given at St. Margaret's Church in Westminster, 13th of February, 1888. And thank you for watching BookTube, and I'll pick another one to read some other day. Thank you.